guys. So today what we're going to do is just talk about Chapter 11. And Chapter 11 is dealing with antitrust, and we're also going to talk about natural monopolies. So antitrust is really just trying to limit the amount of monopolistic behaviors. So we've talked about how monopolies have happened in the past. And moving forward, we have realized that with competition, we're able to increase social welfare. Because remember, monopolies are really trying to restrict output at a higher price. And because of that, that's going to basically have less consumer surplus. So we have antitrust policies, which are there to really limit monopolies to where we can have more competition. So when it comes to mergers, basically what's happening is that we have a big company that's trying to buy another company so that it could be one big company, and that would be more like a monopoly. And so that's what a merger is when two firms are trying to become one. An acquisition could also be where one firm purchases another. All right. So in terms of what the government's going to do is they are going to be looking at the size of the firms and really determining, is this going to lead to a monopoly? So what they do is if at least one of the firms is above a minimum size of sales, such as $101 million per year, or other conditions are met, then they are required under law to notify the FTC. So basically, if you wanted to buy the business across the street and they're really small businesses, you're fine. But if we're talking about big companies like Amazon buying Walmart, okay, big companies like that, then we're going to need to notify the FTC to make sure we're not having a monopoly created. So antitrust laws, like I told you, they're the laws that the government gives the power to block certain mergers and even in some cases break up larger firms into smaller ones. Okay, so these are some historic antitrust laws. If you're more interested in learning about those, please look them up. The basic idea is that we're trying to limit the amount of monopolies that we have to increase competition. There's more information about different things on such as breaking up a merger. So for example, in 2006, Johnson & Johnson bought Pfizer's consumer health division, and this is going to be like big sales such as Listerine, Sudafed, right? All those types of products that we have. So there's a big market for that. So for Johnson & Johnson to buy that, what happened is that the FTC was like, you know what, we need to kind of limit the amount of monopoly that you're creating. So what they said is like, okay, fine, you can do the merger, but you are required to sell off 6 brands to other firms. So basically they had to, even though they bought the rights to this, they did have to break that up into smaller firms. So that's so that included Zantac, cortisone, all those different products. That was a way that the government was able to limit the monopoly of Johnson & Johnson buying another firm. So that's an example on how antitrust laws are there to promote competition. Okay. And if you're interested in measuring market power, remember we talked about the 4-firm concentration ratio. We're not going to be looking at that, but I did want to give you the 2 options that they have in terms of like the old way of doing it. The new way of doing it would be actually looking at data. So we're trying to actually estimate the demand and supply and looking at, well, is that going to basically create a monopoly? So they would actually look at the data and then they would say, okay, well, if this happens, what happens next? So that's the new way, is actually using data, more of a statistical model to basically see how is the market going to react. Okay, but we're not going to be really going into too much into those. I really wanted to just present to you the different ways that a government is trying to promote competition through antitrust laws. Okay, so one of them being restrictive practices. Okay, basically you have a minimum resale price maintenance agreement. So this is where you require a dealer who buys from a manufacturer to sell at least a certain minimum price. So basically a big firm is able to have the economies of scale, so that could lower their price, and that could be a barrier for another firm to enter. So, we do have a minimum sale price. Exclusive dealing, that's also a way basically where you are only dealing with one manufacturer, so that could lead to a monopoly, such as if one large retailer is able to only have business with one firm, that really could be an issue. So government will step in and say, you know what, you cannot have this agreement. Other ones would be tying sales. Basically, think about, like, you have to buy this DVD from this one company, and that DVD is only able to be played on that same firm's DVD player. So basically, if you want that, you have to buy this. So tying sales together, that's also a restrictive practice. Is just like, hey, we need to promote competition. You need to be able to sell this product to where people could, use their own DVD player if they wanted to. Bundling is another example of that, where multiple products are sold as one. So some firms really have those economies of scale to where they're able to sell more of their products at a lower price, and this could be a barrier for some of the smaller firms. Okay, so these are the different actions that governments will do in terms of, trying to restrict these practices. So these right here are what a monopoly could do, and the government could identify when they are doing these things to create a monopoly. So they will step in and say, hey, you have to change course. You have to do something different. What I really want to get into is natural monopolies. Okay, so a natural monopoly is actually one monopoly that we do want to have in terms of an economy. So how natural monopolies come is that they have economies of scale. Basically, they are the bigger they are, the cheaper they can make things. All right, such as public utilities like water and electricity. All right, the bigger firm that they are, the more houses they're able to do, and this will have a low average total cost because they have picture it like they have everything in place to make electricity, right? So basically adding on another house won't cost them as much as the first one. So basically it's much cheaper to just keep adding on houses when they already have everything set up. Okay? So typically what happens is we have large fixed costs. Imagine trying to set up a electricity grid for a city. It's going to take a lot of investment in order for that to happen. So there is high fixed costs with a natural monopoly. But in terms of actually making the electricity, right, there could be a lower variable cost in terms of just adding on houses. So they really have the advantage of economies of scale. All right. So when it comes to why do we only need one? Well, one firm is able to supply the quantity demanded in the market, and if we were to split that up, we're losing out on that economies of scale. We're actually going to have an increase in the cost of production. I'll show you what we mean here. So a natural monopoly has a downward sloping long run average cost. So this is that economies of scale. All right. And let's say the natural monopoly would produce at a quantity of Q2. So if they were to do their MR equals MC, find the profit max, that would happen at Q2. Okay. So they would have this average cost. But if they were to have competition, so we were to have two electricity companies, okay, then what would have to happen is this electricity company supplies this city, and the other firm will supply the other half of the city. So therefore, this one firm, instead of doing all the quantity, they're doing half the quantity. So the quantity for this firm right here, because of the competition, has decreased. So think about it. This one firm at Q2 was able to do all the houses. So Q2 is all the houses. Okay, and then because they have the increase in the competition, they're able to do half, and the other firm does the other half. So now, competition with the other firm, they only do half the houses. So because you're only doing half the houses, right, that's a decrease in quantity. But look at what happened to average cost. Because the quantity is at Q1, your cost is going up. So therefore, average total cost might be too high for multiple firms to enter. So basically, what would be better in terms of lower cost would be for one firm to do all of the houses. Again, it goes back to one firm having the infrastructure, right? The power grid and everything. One firm to have everything to do all the houses. It would be better for that to happen with a natural monopoly. Okay? Because if we were to have multiple, we would have a higher average total cost. In terms of households, right? If the cost is higher, that means you have to pay a higher price. So that's not good. It's better if we have a natural monopoly because of economies of scale. So natural monopoly, right? Because of economies of scale. That's why we want them. Now, we do have some regulations on the natural monopoly. Because we recognize that they're going to be the only firm that is going to be supplying the market, we will be having some regulations on them. One of them being the cost plus regulation. So this is when regulators permit a regulated firm to cover its cost and make a normal level of profits. What we're trying to say here is that your economic profits are zero. So the cost plus regulation says that your price is equal to your ATC. So therefore, zero economic profits. All right. The issue is that if producers receive, so let me show you what this looks like on a graph first. Okay. So it's a monopoly, right? They're the only one. So we have a demand, and we have a marginal revenue. We have a marginal cost. Everything about this is a monopoly. Okay. So they would do MR equals MC. They'd find the quantity. We go up to the demand to find price. All right. And then we would have the ATC coming through here like this. And remember, it's downward sloping because of the economies of scale. It's not going to be a smiley face here because of the higher the quantity is, the lower the cost, the average cost is. So basically what happens here is that this right here is your ATC, and so this area right here are your profits. Now a government would come in and they would say, okay, this right here, this is the cost plus regulation. So this is the regulated price and quantity. So price here. I'll give a double star, Q, double star. So because of the regulated, where price is equal to ATC, you're going to have that quantity. So because of the price equals ATC, quantity goes up, price goes down. And this is good for consumers, right? Because it's like, well, instead of them maximizing profits, we can actually have higher quantity, lower price. So that's one regulation on natural monopolies, is a cost plus regulation, which is just price equals ATC. Now, the deal is that the producers, okay, they get their cost covered. That's what's happening. They get their cost covered. So what's happening here is, could the producer just increase their cost and still get a higher price? Yes. So basically what's happening here is producers have less reason to be concerned with higher cost. Okay, so basically they're going to spend a lot of money on trying to just increase their infrastructure on their electricity, right? They don't care about being efficient. They don't care about lowering cost. All they care about is just trying to make money. So if it's higher cost, no problem. I'll just raise my price. Okay? So basically, a natural monopoly, in terms of the cost plus regulation, right? They're not really concerned about their cost. The main thing I want you to know here on the regulation is right here. Price equals ATC. Another way to find that's where demand equals ATC. Right. So again, if I were to ask you the regulated monopoly, okay, then that would be here. It would be marginal revenue, marginal cost, ATC, and it happens right here, where my demand equals ATC. You might be wondering why not here. Well, the thing is that in terms of just trying to do regulations and trying to increase quantity, this one right here is more of a realistic quantity and price. Okay, so here at demand equals ATC, that's where we're having a regulated monopoly. The other regulation that we have is a price cap regulation. So this is where regulators will actually say, hey, you're going to do this price and you cannot exceed over this price. So this is good, because here's the deal. If the price is here, all right, and if you want to make money, you have to lower cost. You have to figure out a way to be more efficient, lower cost, so you can have profits. So usually what will happen here is that monopolies will try and lower costs as much as possible so they can increase their profits. However, some firms cannot keep up with the price caps, and they do suffer a loss. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Okay? Because what's happening here is we are actually going to be doing price equals marginal cost. In terms of regulations, we do want social welfare to be maximized. We want the best for society. And the best is going to happen where price equals MC. All right? So what happens here is we have a demand curve, a marginal revenue curve, we have a marginal cost, and then we have an ATC. Okay? So what's happening here is it's going to go, actually we'll have something like this. So we have our ATC here. All right. So since we're doing price equals MC, all right, we'll have here, and this will be our quantity. Remember, if we're doing price equals MC, that's basically where demand equals MC. So again, we're having a higher quantity because this is the profit max, and here is the profit max price. So we are having a lower price and a higher quantity, which is good, but look here, at this price and quantity, we could be having a loss. This is possible, okay? Some firms cannot keep up with the price caps, and they could have a loss. So then, if you're making losses as a business, what are you eventually going to do? Leave. But if we don't want them to leave because we need electricity, right, what you're going to do is you're going to give them a subsidy. So what happens is the government will need to subsidize this firm to keep them in business. So if we do the price cap regulation, we might need to give them a subsidy. All right. So that's the two types of regulations that we have on natural monopolies. So we have the cost plus. That's where price equals ATC. And then we also have the price cap. And that's where the price equals marginal cost. The nice thing here is that social welfare is maximized. However, we do need a subsidy. Okay. Right. So if you wanted to learn more about some deregulations, check out these slides, check out the different acts, and also some of these examples right here. In the next video, we'll talk about negative externalities, and then in the next one, we'll talk about positive externalities. I'll see you there. Bye.